Welcome back to The Watch, and today we need to launch a bit of a crusade, because some very slanderous remarks has been levied against critics of a certain show. And just to kind of throw this back at them, because they've had the gall to call people who are criticizing Rings of Power in a certain way evil, like unironically just full-blown evil, right? It's like, no, hang on. What Rings of Power is espousing and saying, and the underlining message, and what it says, what it's been saying in terms of its marketing and the production choices, that's evil. Rings of Power is actually evil, and we're not just going to say it flippantly, all right? We're going to come with receipts, okay? We have specific points to... So, like I said, this isn't just a vain range like, oh, you called me a name, I call it... No. We're going to point out exactly why Rings of Power is evil, propose the argument, and lay it all out. So before we do get to that, I do want to actually address some of the comments that particularly it was one of the showrunners, Payne, has said about critics of Rings of Power.
I thought it was over, Shad. I thought once they silenced the reviews and they said, no one can criticize this show, we'd be done for, they won. Okay, cool. We can't say anything. But even now, they come out and say, oh, you critics, we can't silence you on the forums, but
Exactly. And they can try and, hide reviews and everything like that. The true quality of Rings of Power is on display for all to see. It is garbage. This show is
quality.
awfully written. From a writing standpoint, I look at our reviews. We've got in-depth reviews of every single episode, and we are raising legitimate issues with the writing. We're not just saying, oh, it's bad because of the casting. And by the way, the casting is in what they've done, okay? But when judging the show on its merits, we don't say bad because of casting. In fact, one of the few characters that actually had some of the more decent lines and decent delivery was Deezer, even though the actress has said horrible things and slandered many people, saying that Lord of the Rings wasn't accessible to black people because it didn't have a black person in it, which is just unbelievably slanderous to Lord of the Rings, and racist for people in general to assume that people can't identify with a show if it doesn't have people that look like them, which is bullcrap. That's the thing the actress has been saying. I find her comments vile in the extreme, yet, guess what? I can also acknowledge her delivery and characterization of Deezer, even though Deezer is still a character that doesn't fit in Lord of the Rings, is one of the better characterizations. That's how you be objective, people. We're not letting our bias affect our proper judgment of the show.
I just love how ironic it is. She's like, this is the first female dwarf we're seeing on screen. Like, how big of a deal this will change Rings of Power. This is Deezer's show. And then she's in 2 episodes?
She's barely in it. And it was also a lie because it wasn't the first female dwarf she said on any screen. That's even video games? Because there's heaps of female dwarves in Dragon Age series in the video games, as well as Willow, which has female dwarves in as well, as well as the female dwarves in the Hobbit movies. So it's bullcrap. They've been gaslighting and lying to the fans constantly, and now vilifying them, calling them unironically evil. This level of cope is unbelievable, okay? Shows how desperate, and also shows how vile they are. Like really. Who is evil, okay? The people criticizing the show, or the people calling those criticizing the show evil just because they don't agree with you? What's the actual evil act there? It's kind of obvious. And so when I say Rings of Power is evil, okay, there's obviously a scale, because I'm not saying the whole thing is evil. I'm saying it has a lot of elements in it that are evil. Okay, that are promoting evil ideology, evil philosophy, evil messaging, evil marketing, and everything like that. Okay, and so it has evil in it, and we'll talk about it. So, we can't mention them all, by the way, either. I'm sure we're going to miss some, but we're going to mention the ones that stood out to us the most, and we will get into it. So the comments come from an article that came out on The Hollywood Reporter, and I've read most of the article, but mainly focusing in on the comments of calling people evil to understand the context, okay? Yep. And he's specifically responding to an example of a comment, because the person writing the article say these are the type of criticisms, and they associate it with the far right and all that stuff and everything. But this is the example of a comment they give, and specifically the context of the article has Payne responding to people saying things like this. And so this is the example. A Tolkien adaptation that is a new age politically correct girl power garbage version of fantasy that's raping the text. I would agree. I think that's a pretty succinct summary of some of the problems in Rings of Power.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely new age politically correct. You've seen that in just
The casting.
Girl power. You just look at any time Galadriel has a sword in her hand.
But not only
you will
Galadriel,
see
but also Bronwyn as well.
Bronwyn, yep.
Yeah,
And
someone who's supposed to be untrained, a florist and everything like that, and suddenly she can just pick up a sword and slay orcs.
hook an orc in the foot
And we saw how strong those orcs are. They could pick up and throw someone with one arm like 10 meters, okay? These orcs are insanely strong, yet they're just getting slashed up by someone who's untrained. By the way, I would have that criticism to anyone who's untrained, okay? Not just an
Even
untrained
Theo,
florist.
I reckon.
Yeah.
If he had moments of that too, yeah.
But they don't give it to Theo. He barely gets to cut some people up when he comes out of the inn in episode 6.
Yeah. And the raping the text, look, I haven't read much of Tolkien, but we've heard from other people, like the whole tree and how things struck, and that was just completely made up, wasn't it?
They make up the creation of Mithril. They make up so much. They change so much of Galadriel. Like, the desecration of Galadriel's character is very, like, analogous to raping the original, text. And specifically, not only why... This is why the rape analogy is so, I guess, fitting, right? Is that they're taking advantage of someone else's work who is powerless to stop it for their own advantage and profit and benefit, okay? And there's no consent. Like, Tolkien would go, he would rage so hard at what they've done to his work because we have direct points of comparison. There was an adaptation of the actual Lord of the Rings novels that we have a letter from Tolkien responding to, and he savagely ripped it apart for changes that were far less insignificant than the changes they made in Rings of Power. He despised people changing his work, which also subverting the message and all the themes behind it, as well as despising allegory. It's the quote is everywhere, how much he despised allegory, and there is so much allegory in Rings of Power to modern day politics and crap. Tolkien...
The elves will take our jobs!
They take our jobs, right? Tolkien would despise what Rings of Power and the showrunners have made. I'm talking to you, showrunners now. He would despise you and what you've done to his work, okay? But you're doing it anyway without... And this is almost not only without his consent, almost against his express consent, because we get to see what is done. And look, I get that he would probably also dislike some of the changes in the Jackson trilogy, but they were far more respectable than what they're doing with Rings of Power. Rings of Power, like, Jackson trilogy is almost like a kiss without consent and someone get offended, where Rings of Power is just like bending them over backwards against their screams of protest and just... Actually, let me quote the show: giving them meat and giving it to them raw. It's just, just quoting Rings of Power.
I hate that line.
It's such
but, like,
an
even
awful
the way that, Peter Jackson, he said that we're making the movie like it is a documentary. So everything is very... the care of the work, where with Amazon, they're just like, we're going to make it for modern era fantasy, put in your modern politics, and we're doing it for those people who missed out. Nothing about respecting Tolkien. I mean, they do say it afterwards, but
Then
contradicts
exactly
what they did.
One of the producers literally said that we're making for modern... It makes sense that this show needs to reflect the modern world. Okay? And that admission, right, contradicts so much of the lies that they said to try and cope. Because also, that admission was true. There are direct things in Rings of Power that obviously and clearly reflect the modern world. Yeah. Okay? And they're proud of it. They're proud of the... And now, like, the allegories they have for, like, immigration and Trump and incel. Sauron is like, when you find out who Sauron is an incel, someone who's never loved and everything like that, and that's what sent him down this evil path. Like, it's all there. It is all there, blatant, on display. And so she was absolutely right that, yes, they are forcing in modern day crap into something that didn't have any need for it at all.
No.
And didn't want it all. And then when they say, oh, no, we're respecting Tolkien and we're not putting in modern... Bullcrap. One of the producers have already admitted it. And two, we can see it in the work. We see what you're doing. And so the gaslighting is in the most extreme level in the cope of these showrunners and the people making it. That's the type of criticism that specifically J.D. Payne is referring to, you know, and that's the context that the article presents. And then they say this is like particularly distressing. And all right, because this is what he says. Showrunner J.D. Payne says he can't understand how anyone denouncing the show thinks they are fighting a good fight. Oh, really?
It's a better fight than any of the scenes in the show, that's for sure.
Oh, really? Let us explain that for you, sir. That's the purpose of this video. And look, I really do hope you watch it. If you really want to know the actual perspective of so many of the people that hate what you're doing to Lord of the Rings in context, so you can't just gaslight and bullcrap and say, oh, it's just racist and all that crap. No. Watch this video. People, share it with the showrunners. Lord of the Rings of Power everywhere. Share it with as many people as you can so they can know why people hate Rings of Power and why it's actually evil and why the comments they're saying here is bullcrap. Because he says he can't understand how. Let us explain it so you may understand, sir. He goes on to say, and this one's amazing, right? Mm-hmm. He basically warps and twists the spirit of Tolkien to justify what they're doing here. It's really disingenuous. The spirit of Tolkien is about desperate peoples who don't trust one another and look different from one another, finding common ground in friendship and accomplishing big things. And I was like...
I just like the way he finishes. They accomplish big things.
Big things.
Big brain.
So, oh, really? Really? Okay, let's break that down, because look differently to one another? Bull crap. Only 2 characters in original Lord of the Rings trilogy had an issue to one another because of race. Gimli and Legolas.
Yeah.
Did Aragorn have an issue with elves or dwarves? No. Did he have an issue with hobbits? Did hobbits have an issue with humans, elves, or dwarves? No, hobbits loved elves, everything like that. They had entered with what big-eyed wonder of like, look how wonderful these people in different races are and everything like that. And this guy's literally trying to say that one of the main messages of the Lord of the Rings and the Fellowship was the needing to overcome issues because they look differently. When there was only one example of that, and then every other relationship between nearly every other race, there was not a problem.
They all get along,
And look, yeah, elves had some issues with men, and you know they were weak, and Elrond says something like that. But Legolas had no issue getting along with Aragorn, and so to warp and twist he says the spirit of Tolkien is about this, okay? He's warping and twisting it to such an extreme degree to say it's a message against racism and everything like that. Like,
no.
Really? Because let's break that down a little bit more then, okay? This idea that they needed to overcome these issues because they look differently to one another, it's an absolute lie, because a lot of people in the book also look the same as one another, and sometimes they have issue helping out each other. Like when the Rohirrim and the Gondorians, like that, they didn't want to help. Where was Gondor when, these places were taken? But that was just... They looked the same, all right? Okay, so it wasn't overcoming that. It's like, maybe there could have been, issues of long past grudges and everything like that exist between cultures and not racial identity. Just maybe there's a message of that in Lord of the Rings, okay? And then, all right, let's look at the last battle. No army of dwarves and elves came and helped the siege against Minas Tirith. There was only one elf and one dwarf from the Fellowship that's fighting in there. The other races didn't come and help. They're not overcoming the differences to just unify this one big grand battle.
But true, you're right. It doesn't...
The larger story...
deal with the whole culture of everyone.
There's still a lot of issues between the races. Okay? And by the way, the elves coming to help Helm's Deep is only in the film. In the book, no elves come to help in Helm's Deep, all right? The racial tension and even bigotry that exists between races in Lord of the Rings still exist in the end, a lot of it. Okay? It's not a story about racial overcoming difference. In actual fact, it kind of points out some of the issues that might exist. So this warping to say the spirit of Tolkien, and I'll paraphrase because he says they have to overcome, they don't trust one another, but then he says and, not or, and look differently, have to overcome that they look differently and find common ground in friendship and accomplishing things. It's like, that is not the primary spirit of the message of Tolkien. Bull crap! You're lying through your friggin' teeth, man. And then, but that's what he's saying, right? To justify that anyone who's like, resisting what we're doing, okay? Because guess what? Listen to what he says next, okay? He goes on to say that that's the spirit they've tried to include in every single comma and period in the show. That's such a face-off moment.
Yeah.
So it means you are injecting a racialized message
in every sentence of the script.
In every comma and period. That's the spirit. It's like, holy crap! You've just said it, man. You've just said that. We are racializing Tolkien to have this racial message that we're injecting. Oh, come on. Do you see what they're saying here? They are purposely twisting the Lord of the Rings story into a message about racism so they can shame people who disagree with their changes as racists. And that is such a vile and evil thing to do. That's what they're doing. Who's evil here? And by the way, if you think, spreading racial consciousness is good. No, it's not. Spreading racial consciousness amongst people literally is encouraging people to treat others positively or negatively. It doesn't matter. It's both the same. To treat others differently solely in regards to the color of their skin, which is inherently racist. Okay? They are actually, by admission, in every comma of the show, encouraging people to be racist because they want people to treat others differently according to the color of their skin. Holy friggin' crap. And that's what you're doing to Lord of the Rings. Who's evil here? The face-off in this, and it's an attempt to defend their own position, yet it just reveals the fundamental reason why people hate Rings of Power and the people creating it. Because this is what they're doing. They're literally trying to create more division in the world. And by the way, if you think, no, look at what they've said as well. They've had the actress Deezer say, people of a certain colour of skin can't identify with the Lord of the Rings because it didn't have anyone that looked like him in them. Which is one false, it did have people that looked like him in it. But anyway, by her logic, I shouldn't be able to enjoy Asian cinema, Korean cinema, anything coming out of Africa, and all of that. Bullcrap. It's vile. That's what racializing things does. That's where it pushes to. It makes people think that I need my representation in everything, and if not, it's a racist show, I can't identify. It makes people not to be able to identify with other people based on them just being people. It makes them need to see race everywhere. Okay? That's what this is doing. So I'd like to translate Payne's quote, okay? When he says, the spirit of Tolkien, okay? Because this is basically what he's really saying. We've made Lord of the Rings to have a message about racism. How can anyone who disagrees with our changes think they're fighting the good fight? If you disagree with us, you must be evil racists. That's effectively what he's saying.
Yeah.
So what's being done here, right, is truly, it's gaslighting, it's vilifying, it's lying, it's scummy, and that's what they're saying. And then they have the gall to call other people evil. And so let's break down what he goes on, the spirit that we've tried to include in every single comma and period in the show. That this aspiration would be offensive to people and enrage them, it's very hard for us to understand.
No, it's not. You know exactly why.
What are they protecting? They say, what are they protecting? I don't see how people who are saying these things think they're fighting for good. Woe unto them that call good evil and evil good, sir, because, wow, you do not understand what you're saying there in a big way. And then, again, it's all to vilify the audience, and now he's just saying, how can you fight against this? Because everything we're doing is good, when what you're doing is just vile in the extreme. Their bastardization in changing Lord of the Rings to be all about race, by their own admission, is the spirit that they've tried to include in every single comma and period in the show, and they admit it. How can you be against it? There's another thing to this, right? It shows that the showrunners think that they're beyond moral condemnation. They actually think what they're doing to Rings of Power is morally incontestable, infallible.
How can you argue with it?
How can you argue?
Yeah.
They're making something infallibly pure and righteous when in reality it's dripping in divisive, disrespect, changes, politics, ideology, and then it gaslights people. They gaslight people, unjustly attacks many innocent people, accusing them of racism and being evil for just calling them out on this crap. And so the hubris and evil of what he's saying, it's unbelievable. It's incredible. And then he goes on to say, even if you're fighting for something you think is good, if you do something worse in that fight, then you become evil, he said. I don't see how people who are saying these things think that they're fighting a good fight. It's patently evil, he says.
Does he not understand what side he's on?
Does he not? Look in the mirror, mate! Because we've pointed out just, like, one of the massively vile things Rings of Power is doing. And you know, racializing it and how evil that is. And they even said that they, you know, they've warped and twisted the interpretation of Tolkien to be a story about people overcoming differences in the way they look, which is false. And then that spirit is the thing they injected to every comma into the show. A story about people overcoming differences in the way people look, okay?
And then they set a trap so that if people criticize it, they say, that's, you're evil for doing that. We have a good message to share.
Yeah. Dude, that is evil. And then you have the gall to say, even if you think you're fighting for something good, something you think is good, if you do something worse in that fight, then you become evil. You're doing something massively worse. You think you're fighting for something good, and yet you are making the world more racist by getting people to be more race conscious, treat people different for the color of their skin, giving privileges and hiring people based on the color of their skin and immutable characteristics, changing the source material to justify, and all these things, right? That's what you're doing. You're doing something infinitely worse than the good you think you're achieving, okay? This comment is for you. You bloody hypocrites. And then you say, I don't see how people who are saying these things think that they're fighting a good fight. Here we go. We're explaining it to you. And then he goes, it's patently evil. Black and white, he says it's patently evil. It's like, no, you're evil. Rings of Power is evil. And let's explain a little bit more on that, shall we? One of the fundamental messages in Rings of Power, it's in the first episode, and it's revealed in the final kind of closing of that episode, and it comes up again when Galadriel speaks to Halbrand. Sometimes you have to touch the darkness to know the light. Sometimes you have to, not need to, you must touch the darkness to know the light. Sometimes you must be evil to be good. Sometimes the ends justify the means. One of the most evil philosophies ever, okay? Sometimes you have to corrupt yourself a little bit to achieve the ends that you want because you think they're ultimately better in balance. That's a fundamental message in Rings of Power, and it's a vile, evil sentiment, okay? Here is the true morality that everyone should try and understand and live by. It is better to die in righteousness, and this is actually the teachings of the Bible, okay? It is better, so it's Christianity and everything, better to die in righteousness than to survive and achieve what you think is good through evil means, okay? That you need to have a standard of uncompromising righteousness, that you'll never concede to doing even the slightest thing evil, even if you think it is justified in doing a greater good. In actual fact, this is one of the fundamental philosophies behind Satan's plan. Depends on which branch of Christianity you have, in which talks about the council in heaven, okay? We're Latter-day Saints, and so in our own teachings, okay, Satan came before God and said, I have a better plan. In fact, I'm paraphrasing, I will force everyone to do good, not give them a choice in the matter, and everyone will be saved. And as a result, give me thine honor, give me your glory. And so his intention was vile and extreme. And this is an example in Christianity of what is considered one of the most evil things possible. And look at how it connects with the philosophy that is in Rings of Power here. First, he wants to dethrone God and take his position, gain all his glory and everything like that. Second, he wants to take away the free will of all his children and force them to do good. And one of the actual through lines of that is if someone is forced to do good and not given the choice, they are not deserving of the reward of that good action. And so by doing that, he robs every one of God's children the ability to progress and be rewarded for good choices. Okay? And so it's subtle, but it is one of the most extreme, conniving plans that by forcing people to take away free will, no one can earn blessings for righteous choices. And then it's also reveals this end justify the means, is that no, I will take away the choice and force them to do good, which is an evil to achieve what he is proposing to be a greater good, and he's saying they'll all be saved, which ends up being completely false and a lie, because they actually wouldn't be able to be saved if they're not given the choice to do it. Yeah. And so oftentimes the good that people think they're achieving in doing some morally grey things to get there is a vile evil in the first place and a misunderstanding. And then it also reveals the concept of forcing people to do good and taking away their choice to do it to achieve a greater good is a vile, satanic mentality, okay? Evil in the extreme. And so the evil that he was doing was taking away people's free will, and he was trying to justify saying it's okay to force them to do this, take away their free will, do the bad thing, because then no one will sin, all right? And that's insanely bad, okay? That's one of the definitions of evil that you can take away people's free will and things like that, but also the concept of doing something bad to achieve what you think good. The ends justifying the means, okay? And Rings of Power literally has that philosophy said. Sometimes you have to touch the dark, sometimes you have to do evil, okay, to know the light. And people say, oh, you're just not, touch the darkness. That doesn't really mean do evil. It means kind of explore the dark. That's still bad, by the way. Understand the darkness. No. You don't need to explore, do anything bad or anything to understand darkness. In fact, you can understand darkness by never going near it, okay? Because if you understand good, you will understand evil by just knowing what the opposite of the good is, okay? And that's just trying to do a generous interpretation, which isn't justified because it can be equally interpreted that she's saying you have to do evil to know how to do good, which is a vile and evil philosophy. In fact, from a Christian standpoint, it's downright bloody satanic, okay? Lord of the Rings. Sorry, Rings of Power, people. Rings of Power. Yeah, what's the underlying... And if this is one of the most blatant kind of philosophies I've proposed in the show, because it's come up multiple times. Okay? And Halbrand says, I've done some horrible, vile things, and Galadriel comes back and says, sometimes you need to have touched the darkness to know the light, basically excusing whatever evil he's done. If he was murdering babies, she doesn't know and everything. She's willing to dismiss it because she's now trying to propose in that scene that what he did was necessary for him to be able to become good. It's like, no, I don't think, what he did evil was... he probably could... What if he was just good to begin with and he didn't need to do all those vile, evil things and you don't know what they are?
And he could still be good. He didn't need to do anything bad to therefore be a good person.
And so not only that, if it... I wonder what will be revealed about what Halbrand actually did, okay? And you're saying that he can just be good without trying to make any type of repentance, fix anything, apologize to anyone. There's no. When you do evil, you do need to try and resolve it, make penance for it, okay? If you want to actually embrace the good and do right. And she's like, I don't know, she doesn't even consider what it might have been. Just be good now. I was like, maybe he might need to address some of the bad things he did. And guess what? That's kind of one of the themes of my own novel, okay? I have character in my novel, Chronicles of Shadow of the Conqueror. There's a graphic novel available if you want to check it out. It's something that's written, okay, with a greater awareness of the morality that you're dealing with here, because my character is a former evil tyrannical emperor. And the whole structure of the story is because he then realizes what he did was vilely evil, and it's, what on earth can he do to try and fix this? And he thinks it's impossible because it's too great, but he'll dedicate his entire life, the rest of his life, to try and fix some of the evil. He doesn't, because his evil is so great he can't fix all, but if he just spends the rest of his life, at least he can bring some light back to the world he drowned in darkness. An entire life in penitence in trying to fix, addressing some of the bad things too. But you just needed to do it to embrace the light. It was a necessary step for you to become good, and you don't need to address it. It's like, look at what Rings of Power is saying when you unpack the philosophy here. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievably vile, and that's just one thing. Okay. So, people criticizing Rings of Power's evil. We're not. We're infallibly good, and anyone who dares argue against it, he says that. You think you're fighting against us and fighting good's fight? No, fighting against the goodness I represent is patently evil. That's what the showrunners think. The showrunners think Rings of Power is so infallibly good that any type of resistance is an act of evil. Holy crap. I can't believe it. That's how deluded they are in this. All right? And then when you break it apart, you see there is such evil philosophy messaging. And then the act, like, what they're doing, the way that they're gaslighting and justifying their evil is an evil in and of itself. All right? And they have the hubris to say, we're not bad. Everyone who resists our goodness is bad. Gosh, sounds a bit like what Lucifer would do.
Sounds a bit evil to me.
Evil,
Yeah.
So then we get to the hobbits and halfwits. The hobbits that they call halfwits, which are really hobbits. They leave people behind to certain death, even if it's in a snowstorm, right? Which is murder, okay? They might not be holding the knife, but it's effectively murder. So they murder people and then mock them and laugh about it afterwards. And it's played off in the show as not only perfectly fine, as funny. They expect the audience to laugh along with it. That there was a guy that was killed from a swarm of bees, and then they're like, but he was an idiot, so it's okay. You can tell by the context of the show, the people who made it are unaware of how vile that is. They are showing these half-foot hobbits as, oh, what a close-knit, friendly community. They're so happy. Because they unironically say, like, not Poppy, it's the other one, Nori. She says, it's not our way. It's not what we do. It's like, we don't leave people behind, because she's saying she wants to help, discount Gandalf.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's not, and so they're implying that the halfwits, like Nori believes that they don't,
Leave people behind
leave
them
behind,
to
and
help
then
each other.
That's a philosophy of this people, and then their actions directly contradict that, where they're happy to murder those of their kind.
Just
and
leave them for dead on the trail.
Blame members of their community for the fact that they can't find as many mushrooms this season, and then take away the wheels of their cart, purposely stranding them in a place infested by,
wolves or whatever else.
Nori literally says that it's really dangerous migrating across these lands because they could run into trolls and wolves. And it's like, basically, it's really dangerous. And if you're stranded there, by implication, it means death. And so when they say take away the wheels of the people's carts so they can't move properly, they could probably just leave it. I don't know. But they're basically, the context of the show is that by taking their wheels, they will be stranded, which is a contradiction in logic because they could just leave their cart and walk. But the context of the show literally believes they're stranding them and they won't be able to keep up with the rest of the half-foots. And if they believe that stranding them in this horrible place with all these dangers, it's murder. It's an act of intentional murder.
And as well, they're also morally grey when there's a part where he basically says, "Don't go out and have naughty times with your lover tonight because it's going to be a full moon
and people will see you."
So, just kidding. Go ahead.
Just go and do it because we like to watch people do the dirty. This civilization.
So gross.
It's awful. And the thing that makes this particularly vile and evil, the show unironically thinks that this is not it's funny, it's good.
It's okay. They make it.
Halfwoods are just friendly, nice people.
They normalize it. I think that's the most dangerous part of it.
Another thing of horrifying evil in Rings of Power that the show is presenting as good. Okay, then there's the fact that characters blatantly lie to one another to get what they want and manipulate them, and the show seems like it's fine. Like Elrond goes to Durin with the express intent to propose thing to use him, okay, for his own ends. Durin accuses him of that. He says, "I'm only here because I miss seeing a friend," which is complete bullcrap. The only reason you came there is because at no point did you say, "I need to see Durin." Oh, while they're on their way, you could ask him about this. No. It was like, we have a job we need to do. Oh, the dwarves could help with that. At no point did seeing the friend, but he lies blatantly and he lies consistently through all of that. Multiple times does he just lie about this. So the lies between characters that the show expects you to just think, oh, it's fine. It seems to be saying it's okay to lie to people like this. Which I say, no, it's not. Using and manipulating and lying to people. And talk about the manipulation. Galadriel and Halbrand. Oh my goodness. So from the first meeting, Galadriel's basically like, oh, you're from the Southland, so you're going to do what I say from now on. Halbrand at first says no, and then at the end of the episode, he says, where do we go to now? And so he basically submits to her, and nearly at every point, even though Halbrand raises an objection, Galadriel is forcing him to do whatever the hell she wants, and if he resists, then she will resort to some of the most despicable manipulation ever, and the show thinks that this is okay and fine, because Galadriel is a wonderful person.
Just when he's like, I want a normal life, I want to have a happy life. No! You're coming with me. We'll go back to war.
Galadriel literally says that Halbrand will find peace in no other way apart from across the seas, meaning going with her to war. That nothing else will find him peace. And by the context of the show, I'm quite certain that this leads Halbrand down a path that, let's say, embraces some of his old ways, which means everything that he does after that is because of that scene with Galadriel in episode 5 where she manipulates him to do what she wants, even though it is clear beyond everything from the context that this would be bad for him. Okay? He tries to say it, and then he says, and he's basically said, I just do being a smith, doing things that me, this is giving me peace. It's like, no, you will never find peace this way. So, manipulating and using people for your own ends, justified perfectly in what Galadriel is doing. And this is probably going to destroy Halbrand, in the future as well. That's Galadriel's justified in it. Oh my goodness. Okay, and then there's the fact that they're always showing Galadriel to be right, validating her in all her awful behavior. She's been mistreating people, abusing them, forcing them to do what she wants, okay? Driving people to the point of near death in, this quest for... she's asked about revenge in episode 5, and her answer as to why she is so obsessed is because she can't stop. It's effectively saying, because. I'm doing it because. Before it was revenge, now that they're so lost, and that they can't even do that. But the thing is, if you think that this is the show acknowledging, Galadriel has issues, no, the show by context is showing she's been right in every single thing that she's done. The evil is still in the world, and so she's right to do all this hunting and everything like that. And the way that she's been mistreating people and all that stuff was actually justified because if Galadriel did not push this so far, they wouldn't have been able to save the people in the Southlands. People in the Southlands would have been slaughtered by the orcs because it's only what she did that brought the Númenóreans there. And so every action she did up to that point, the show is demonstrating is justified. It needed to happen because it saved the Númenóreans' lives. And it's okay to manipulate, to use people, to treat them like crap, to talk to people and condescend like you're the most time. Who is this man who is this mortal who thinks he has the slightest idea of who he's speaking to, right? Lines like that. All justified because it got what she was want, and it achieves saving the Númenóreans. Oh, hang on. Doing horrible, evil things to achieve a good? That's kind of like a philosophy that the shows are already talked about. Okay, that all of Galadriel's vile behavior, mistreating people, it was needed because it saved those Númenóreans' lives. And by the way, there was no other way to help the, not the Númenóreans, the Southlanders, no other way to help the Southlanders survive this orc attack apart from Galadriel acting like a complete cow. If she actually acted submissive, humble, and everything like that, probably the Númenóreans would be more willing to help her from the get-go.
Yeah, she had a single bone in her body that could be persuasive.
Yeah.
She would have had a chance.
But no, she's justified in it because she gets what she wants, which is baffling. The fact that these characters flip and just give this horrible, vile cow of a person everything that she's asking for, even though she's been acting like the biggest cow in the world, is so unrealistic, but the show just expects us to swallow it and accept it. Bull crap. Get out of here. Also, the sea is always right. So, why is this evil? It can justify anything that you want. Yeah. Okay? It can justify doing the vile, most evil thing. And the Númenóreans are basically, they have a philosophy that can justify anything. Now, what a stupid concept. And you're expecting me to believe that an intelligent, cultured race would have a philosophy like that that can be interpreted to justify basically anything they want if you involve the sea in it.
Especially when they just say it and it either contradicts what they're trying to say, or when they just mention it out of no context at all.
A boat full of drowning children. Oh, we need to help them. It's the sea doing it. Sea is always right. But then we get to things that are in the show, but also around the show contextually, like making changes based on evil political ideology. Also, denigrating feminine power and the feminine role and everything like that as something lesser and not as strong and can't achieve the things that Galadriel does in the show, and needing to change her into a kick-butt fighting thing. And hey, I love kick-butt fighting females if they're not cows or conceited like Galadriel and everything like that. Alita Battle Angel, love it, okay? The issue is changing a distinctly feminine character who had power in a feminine way and saying that wasn't good enough. We need to turn her into what they say, a piss and vinegar fighting girl power boss. I don't say girl power boss, but the piss and vinegar thing comes from them, okay? It really felt like an attack on her character and a denigration of feminine power, and because it seems to be not good enough. And it's a trend that we see in modern media. Just look at my review of the film The Princess, okay? And Galadriel, just another one in the line of their feminine grace not being better enough. It also comes down to the fact that, like, the female equivalence of men also isn't good enough. Like Queen. Queen isn't good enough. We need to name them King, because the female equivalent isn't equal, which is insulting to women massively. Of course Queen is equivalent to King, but no, we have King Valkyrie in Thor. We've got the woman King. It's like, hang on, wasn't it just Queen once upon a time? Like, what is... I have far more respect for women because I think women can hold as much power and authority as women, and they don't need to act like men or take on the titles of men as if the female title was somehow lesser. So we see heaps of that, and that's just one thing with Galadriel, but also the evil political ideologies that they're promoting and things like that. For instance, equality of outcome, not equality of opportunity. They are pushing, especially Amazon. Look at our video where we review Amazon's hiring practices, okay? That they will deny people, qualified people, jobs based on the color of their skin.
Based on the percentage of who else is already hired.
Exactly. Incredibly racist, right? And the whole production of Rings of Power has been based on those hiring practices, those philosophies, right? And is inherently racist, and is the result that they will even bastardize the source material to inject the diversity that they want. But you know, the diversity that they want is not diversity of opinion or anything like that, okay? They will actually call a show that is made by mostly women diverse. It's like, there was no men on that. I thought diverse meant equal representation. No. What diversity means is basically no men and no white people. Okay? As long as you have it, they're not involved in the majority of everything else, it's diverse. Somehow, Black Panther was the most diverse film ever when there was not an equal representation of skin colors in that. Now, this is the thing. It doesn't matter. That's the truth. If a show calls for having mostly Asians, mostly black people, mostly white people, that's the context of the show. Just like Lord of the Rings. It doesn't friggin' matter. People who think it matters are the racist ones. And then when they push it to that extreme, they have the goal to call it diverse. And again, it's actually not. They've actually been excluding a lot of qualified people in the end. And the show is built on that by the fact, again, they've injected it into, because Lord of the Rings, we know, was made to be in English mythology, okay? What about English tradition and folklore and stuff, right? Like, if people injected, like, Asians and white people into a traditional African folklore and everything like that, changing historical figures to be a different skin color, they would cry bloody murder. Yet they have the gall to change historically white people, like Anne Boleyn, change their color. Like, what a friggin' insult to English history, heritage, tradition, culture. But it doesn't matter. You can piss on that and bastardize that because they're the evil people. They're the history and the colonizations and all that crap. And it's okay. So the hypocrisy is insane. The evil is insane. And that's what's happening. And that's what Rings of Power is supporting and espousing in its hiring practices, who's making it, and it's also seen in the end result. That's why people are saying it's evil. That's why people are fighting against it. That's why we're fighting the good fight. Why we wage a metaphorical crusade against this crap, because that's what's going to ruin the world and ruin society. Make people more race conscious, judge people based on the race, hire based on race, and everything like that. It is literally pushing people to want racial segregation. Again, unironically. And the people pushing for racial segregation, it isn't mostly white people, okay? Have a look at, that they want certain spaces for certain colors of skin in universities. They want sometimes movie releases only available for certain people of certain color skin, everything like that. It's literally leading to racial segregation again. And they have the goal to say, we're supporting something good in the world. No, this is why we're fighting against it, because it is destroying the world, all right? And if people just stand by and let it keep pushing everything, that's where it leads to. And it needs to be resisted, because it is evil, okay? So, there's that. Then there's also disrespecting Tolkien, co-opting someone else's work and injecting your own messages. Okay? What right do they have to do that? It is so vile. Tolkien would hate them for doing it. We've already kind of addressed this, okay? But it is truly evil to subvert the message, the theme behind someone else's work and put in your own against the clear, express wishes of the creator. Tolkien would never want this, okay? And to push it to this extreme is insane. And it is not only insanely disrespectful, it's evil. It's saying, this other great man's work, I'm going to take that and then write my own story in it, benefiting off of the goodwill of his story and injecting my own messages because I am not talented enough to make my own work with my own messages and reach that level of prominence. I will take the success of someone else's work and use that to prop up my own messages, ideologies, and story because I lack the talent to do it myself. That's evil. That's vile. They've done it to The Wheel of Time in the Wheel of Time adaptation. Rafe Judkins did it in the TV show because subverting so many of the fundamental messages of Wheel of Time. And Rings of Power is just another one in a long list. Oh, what about injecting allegory into Rings of Power? Something Tolkien was expressly against, okay?
Well, he made an effort to not include it. He wanted...
Well, he had not only effort, he achieved it as well. It's like Sauron did not represent Hitler, okay? There was no references to like World War II or anything like that. And one of the reasons why he disliked allegory in this, he was fine with symbolism, okay? He was fine using things that was taken from folklore and things, but not direct allegory, because that is what made it truly timeless, okay? It means people can see the messages and themes in it, and then relate it to things that have similarities in their own world, because it has the flexibility to do that. And what a genius thing to do. Truly ingenious, right? But no, the showrunners, the people making this, want direct allegory. And we have seen some blatant allegories in this, which is undeniable. Bullcrap if they say, oh, we weren't doing that. It's so clear. Like messages against immigration. Okay? That one elf appears and suddenly everyone's going crazy. She's going to take our jobs. All the elves
They don't sleep, they don't eat.
And they also contradict canon and law in some of their, things that they say what elves do and stuff. And then there's not only that, Pharazôn is clearly a Trumpian kind of character. And they even said, the son was asked in an interview, how does it feel to be acting as Trump Jr., essentially? Which is one saying that Pharazôn is Trump and there's Trump Jr. And so they, direct allegory once again. And also, but Pharazôn in the story becomes, human sacrificing evil nutcase.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
And then by making... presenting him being inspired by Trump, what does that say about all Trump supporters? That they think Trump is as bad as as Pharazôn is going, and everyone who supports him are as vile and evil. Okay? You're vilifying an insanely large group of people by this allegory you're injecting in, subtly implying that they're incredibly evil for voting for someone. That's what the creators of Rings of Power think about half of, the US. Okay, so there's just another allegory. There's an allegory about slavery in this as well, because there's a group of evil things that enslave people. It's the orcs. The orcs are enslaving them. What do the orcs look like in Rings of Power, Nathan?
They're quite pale.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of an understatement, because they are insanely pale. Like going out of your way, going to specific effort to make them really, really, really pale. Not just in their skin, but in the clothing that they wear. It's that's not accidental, okay? The clothing, you just connected something.
They wear white hoods, don't they?
They wear white hoods too, Nathan!
Oh! What are you doing?
And again, they went out of their way to do this. Every depiction of orc previously, sometimes they had grubby kind of paley skin and everything like that. But no, the depiction in Rings of Power, they went out of their way to make them really white. All right? Intentionally. And what do these orcs end up doing? Enslaving people? Ha! But there's no allegory in this. Surely not. Surely not.
I think the worst one, though, was in the first episode when, is it Arondir, when he walks into the town and he's the only black person and there's all these white people and he's like, you're people, you did bad things.
Yep, and
you need to be looked at.
You need to be watched and observed because the same blood that runs through their veins is the same blood that runs through their ancestors.
Yeah.
Judging generations past people for the bad things that their ancestors did, feeling that they are capable of the same type of evil and need to be watched over and everything like that. And by the way, do you know that with the color of the skin color of the Southlanders, okay, they're like, they've changed the position of the Southland. Southland's in the book. The Southland's in the is actually further past Mordor. But guess the skin color of them in the original source material.
Were they darker?
They were dark skinned. They changed the skin color of the Southlanders to be white.
You had representation and you changed it.
They could have made all the Southlanders, dark skinned. It was all there. They had the representation they wanted. The Southlanders play a particularly prominent role in the story, yet they changed them to white. Again, an intentional change. They did it on purpose, and then we're left with why, okay? And this is, again, changing the color of skin of the source material from black to white, white to black. I'm against it all, be true to the source material, okay? And I object to this change too. I'm not like, oh, look at them, they changed the Southlanders to white, I feel represented. Bullcrap. That would be really racist if I said something like that, okay? It's not my belief at all. I think it's horrible that they changed the Southlanders to be predominantly white now, and then we're left with the reasons why. And then we have that scene with Arendir, that they did bad things in the past, and they need to be watched over because they might do bad things again. But Rings of Power has no, subversive, vile, ideological, allegories that reflect beliefs and ideologies of the modern world. Sure, none of that's there. Bullcrap. It's blatant, all right? And not only is it an insane insult to Tolkien, who was against all of that, it also reveals their own beliefs, their own racist beliefs. Okay. Oh, there's another one. And it's going to be, it's already kind of revealed. It's about incels and things like that, and how, not being loved leads you. So one of the interviews with the guy who plays Halbrand talks about, I like to explore, I'm paraphrasing, the idea of what people could get driven to if they've never experienced love in their life and things like that. Why is this bad? Because they claim most of nerd culture and everything, like people like us, they how often are we accused of being incels and everything?
Oh, in the comment section, quite often.
Quite often,
Every
right?
review at least once.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because we're both married.
Yeah, I know.
And I have 5 kids, right? But the thing is...
And I'm practicing.
Yeah, they really believe that people who have objection to this, well, they must be like lonely, pathetic, losers who can't even have relationships with people, or especially women, right? Because only those type of losers would hate what we're making. They must be incels, right? And so then you latching onto this incel concept and then putting it to the interpretation of a character, because his character, is going to be very evil. Just wait and see, all right? Again, there's the connection, okay? That's what they're saying and what their belief is. Look, they endorse racism. You need to see your own skin color for it to be accessible. We've mentioned this, but the actress of Deezer literally said that now Lord of the Rings will be accessible to people of dark skin in a way that it wasn't before, because it has people that look like them in it, which is insanely racist. Fully endorsed by Amazon, okay? This is probably the script Amazon gave her in the promotion, right? Endorsed by Amazon, endorsed by Rings of Power marketing. That's their belief, all right? Which means they're racist. Okay? And by the way, I saw very few Asians in the main cast of Rings of Power. By their acknowledgement and belief, they think Rings of Power is not accessible to Asians because it doesn't have Asians in the main cast. That's their honest, genuine, racist belief. When I say bullcrap, you can identify with any person because they're a person. You can identify with their struggles. In actual fact, you can even identify when they're not humans at all. I identified with Treebeard and some of his, things that upset him and stuff. So it's racist, but it's also even worse than that. It goes even further because they believe you can't identify with, you can identify with anyone that has an experience that you can connect to.
What are dog movies? Why do you create the end of a dog movie? It's not because they're human or they're the same race as you. It's because there's a good boy that did something or he's gone. Yeah.
All right. And guess what? We're not done yet. And so we're like, look at the amount of vile, evil crap that is associated with Rings of Power. This is why it's evil, right?
So much.
And there's more. Then there's the blatant lying and gaslighting and bullcrap that they have been pulling. And we've already shown lots of examples, but there's a quote clear as day, where one of the producers said that this show needs to reflect the modern world, and then they later say, no, it doesn't. We're not putting in any of our own messaging or modern world stuff. Bullcrap! It's direct contradiction. You're lying through your teeth, okay? And then they gaslight, like, if anyone tries to call them out, oh, you're wrong. We never said that. You're evil and all that stuff.
Also, I think it's just kind of a little bit evil that hobbits aren't in the second age or half-foots, and so to get around that, they don't call them hobbits. But like in the sense that they're inserting things in just because, if we actually do that, that would break our contract. They're stretching the contracts to include things in.
I'm so glad you brought it up, because when we're talking about lying, this is a massive blatant lie. There are direct quotes from Tolkien who says that Half-foot is a breed of hobbit. Half-foots are hobbits. Direct quotes from Tolkien, okay? And then they have the gall to say that half-foots are not hobbits.
Because legally, they'll get in trouble if they do it.
Exactly. But they say, and what's funny is even people in supporting the show have just called them hobbits because it's so blatantly obvious they are. But then the showrunners, when being interviewed, they say, no, they're not hobbits, they're half-foots. This isn't a hobbit story, it's a half-foot story. No, they are hobbits. They're gaslighting and lying to you flat in your face, okay? And we know why. Doesn't excuse it. It's still trying to gaslight you, lie to your face. And guess what? Gaslighting people is also evil. And then they even arbitrarily judge people by the look in their eye. There's an interview with the showrunners who said, we only hired people that had the look of Tolkien in their eye. And there are levels of immorality in this. One, arbitrarily making yourself the arbiters of who has Middle Earth, who is true Tolkien. Well, no, you don't have that authority. Get out of... I can't stand that. And so that's immoral, just taking that sense. And then denying people jobs based on the look in their eye. And look, I know he's being hyperbolic and everything, but he said it, okay? And it's an awful thing to say, because if we just take you seriously at your words, you're basically saying you deny people jobs because of the look in their eyes.
Yeah. Not
qualifications, how they did it. Okay. It's a lesser one, but I'll still stick it to them because they deserve it, right? And this is just what we noticed. There's more about this. This is a crap mine that the more you dig, it's like, wow. But that's what we really wanted to get off our chest and share with you, that, Rings of Power, they have the gall to accuse critics of it as evil. No, they are the ones that are evil. Rings of Power has lots of evil, horrible, immoral, terrible things in it, and here are the reasons why. We come with receipts. There we go.
That's it.
Check out my graphic novel. It's still available for a short time. Written by someone who is not, drowning in this stuff, but also it's my attempt to try and give us good stories again. That isn't got this axe to grind political message to bash people over the head. Because I think my book is about forgiveness, essentially. That should be an apolitical message. Just be a good moral, and it poses questions. The question is he worthy of forgiveness and redemption? And guess what? I don't answer that. I leave it to the audience to read, find out for themselves. And so I'd love to find out what you think. Is the character worthy of redemption? Give it a go. You can get the second edition novel through the Indiegogo campaign with collector edition covers and even leather bound. That's available. Best way to jump in. And also, the graphic novel, get to see it depicted. Check that out. Thank you for all the support, and also thank you for joining us on this video. And as always, stay on watch.